Welcome back, guys. So in this video I'm going to do a 1 year review on my Specialized Stumpjumper comp. Some of the things I'm going to talk about is the sizes this bike is available in, the different specs the bike has, also about some of the pros and cons, who this bike's for, and just a general overview of how this bike feels and rides. So let's get into it. So let's talk about the sizing of these bikes. So Specialized has now implemented a new size chart. So instead of your regular small, medium and large, they now come in S1, S2, S3, S4, S5 and even S6. By doing this, you get a more customizable fit to suit your height and your size. I have an S5 and this fits me perfectly. So this bike comes stock with a SRAM NX 1x12 drivetrain, paired with the SRAM G2R hydraulic disc brakes for plenty of braking power. It also comes with a 203mm rotor at the front and a 180mm rotor in the rear. So to cushion the ride, we're riding on a Fox 34 Rhythm with 140mm travel and a Fox Float DPX with 130mm travel. This bike also comes with an X-Fusion Manic dropper post with 175mm of travel in the S5, which is the size I have here, but all sizes come with a different length dropper post. So this bike runs on 29-inch wheels with a 30mm internal rim width, but you can also run this bike as a mullet setup, which means you can run a 27.5-inch wheel on the rear. So this Stumpjumper is equipped with a flip chip right here and also on the other side. By flipping this from the low to high setting can change the geometry, which leads us into the next point about the geometry of this Stumpjumper. When the flip chip is set to the low setting, it's 77 degrees compared to 77.5 degrees in the high setting. The head tube angle in the low setting is 65 degrees and then switched over to the high setting it's 65.5 degrees. The chainstay length in the low setting is 450mm, then it shortens in the high setting to 450mm. The chainstay lengths will change depending on what size frame you have. These measurements were taken on a S5 size frame. Even though these are only slight changes, it makes a massive difference to how the bike rides and feels. Now let's talk about the modifications and upgrades I've done to this bike. I have installed a water bottle cage that houses a multi-tool, tyre levers and a CO2 canister. I've also strapped a tubeless repair kit to my bike frame just in case things go south on the trails. I've also wrapped the bike in ride wrap and installed a down tube bash plate just to make sure the frame stays protected. I've purchased a set of cush core for the rear wheel, but I'll wait until I find some better tyres before installing it. I've installed some volume spacers in the fork and rear shock for more of a progressive feel in the suspension and more support when the bike takes some bigger hits, while also still being plush on the high-speed chatter. Recently, I installed a new SRAM GX chain to keep the drivetrain running nice and smoothly. I've also made a how-to video on how to replace a chain if you're interested in that too. And I can't brush over the fresh ODI grips. You'd be surprised how much a nice set of grips will do to the overall feel of a mountain bike. Now, who is this bike for? The Specialized Stumpjumper is a do-it-all mountain bike that can handle anything you throw at it. It's designed for riders who are looking for a versatile and high-performance mountain bike that can handle a variety of trails and terrain. The Stumpjumper can handle both technical uphill climbs and fast downhill descents with agility and precision. The Specialized Stumpjumper comes in many different models which have different specs, frame materials, features and all come at a different price point. The Specialized Stumpjumper is a do-it-all mountain bike with modern geometry and very good pedal efficiency. Now I'm going to go through some of the pros and cons after 1 year of riding the Stumpjumper consistently. I'm very happy with the specs of the bike. The suspension feels very smooth and plush while also being very quiet. The brakes are very powerful and I've had no problems with brake fade. The bike has a low center of gravity, which makes cornering very easy. It surprised me how snappy and compliant this bike felt, even though I'm riding a big S5 frame. This bike is a great climber and smashes the cross-country trails because it has a very low rolling resistance. I've also raced enduro on this bike and I feel very comfortable doing so. It maintains its speed down the trails, it handles tech very well, and also it's a great jumper and very good at flow trails too. I never feel underbiked on the Stumpjumper. So first off, the rear shock does get warm on some really long descents. I haven't noticed any performance loss, but just something to note that it does get a little bit warm. Also, I had a problem with bottoming out my fork and my shock. After adding volume spacers, it did fix the problem, but just you would have to fork out a little bit of money to get volume spacers, but once you get them, it definitely makes a massive difference. Also, another thing that would be nice is just to have a longer dropper post, just so I can get a little bit of extra drop. So maybe like a 200mm dropper post for this S5 frame. That would be very great. So the last con about this bike is the hub engagement. So the hub is a high quality hub and it's definitely reliable, but it's a very slow engaging hub, which from coming from my old bike with a high engagement hub to this bike, I definitely noticed a difference, and it was definitely annoying, but it definitely wasn't worth spending the money on getting a new hub. After riding this bike for a year, I don't really notice it anymore. It's just sort of gotten used to it, but it's definitely something to take into consideration. Also, one thing I want to say about this Stumpjumper Comp 2022 is that it's not the best XC race bike, nor is it the best heavy enduro race bike either. It sort of splits the difference between the two. So it's a nice trail bike and it's definitely very fun, comfortable to ride, very compliant, and I really love riding this bike and I'm very happy with it. So that's the end of the video. If you have any comments about this bike, leave them down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe and share it too. Cheers.